So there's this tidal wave of cash flooding into AI right now, and pretty much everyone is using the same word to describe it: bubble. But what if that's not what's happening at all? What if we're looking at something completely different?
I mean, you can't escape it, right? Ask just about anyone who follows the market, and you're going to hear the same thing over and over. Bubble, bubble, bubble. It's pretty much become the default answer.
And it's not hard to see why. It checks all the boxes, doesn't it? The whole market's basically being propped up by a handful of giant companies. Everyone's betting on what it could be worth someday, not what it's making right now. The products themselves, they're not even close to paying for themselves. It even kind of looks like you've got CEOs just shuffling the same money between each other. And when you add in all the geopolitical risks out there, yeah, it looks like a textbook bubble. But this is where things get really interesting. There's this massive contradiction sitting right at the heart of this whole idea, and it's summed up perfectly by this one thought. If everyone agrees it's a bubble, then why on earth are the smartest people in the room, the informed investors, still pouring billions upon billions of dollars into it? That's the big puzzle we're going to try and solve here. Are they all just completely missing something that seems obvious to the rest of us? Or do they see something that we don't?
So, all right, if everyone's so sure it's a bubble, where's the pop? Why hasn't it burst yet? And that question, well, that leads us to the first big counterargument. This thing is surprisingly tough.
See, the thing about bubbles is they don't just, vanish into thin air. Something has to pop them. There's always a pin. For the dot-com bubble, it was things like antitrust lawsuits and companies suddenly admitting their numbers were, well, a fantasy. For the housing bubble, it was the subprime mortgage crisis that finally did it. So, has the AI market had its own pin moments? Oh, you bet. It's been through the ringer. We're talking major legal fights, government clampdowns, rising interest rates, a constant stream of bad press. Any one of those could have been a knockout blow for a normal industry. And yet, the AI market just kind of shakes it off and keeps going. So what gives? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is where the money is actually coming from. And when you start to follow that money trail, you realize this AI boom is different. Very different from the bubbles we've seen before. We're not talking about small change here. We are talking about trillions, with a T. Companies like Microsoft, Apple, and Alphabet, they've spent the last 20 years building up a war chest of cash that's just mind-boggling. So how in the world did they get all this cash? Well, it was kind of a two-step process. First, for years before 2017, the tax laws actually made it smart for them to just park trillions of dollars overseas. But then a tax deal in 2017 created this one-time window for them to bring it all back home. And suddenly they had this massive pile of cash just sitting there, ready to be spent. And this is the key takeaway, right? Unlike the housing bubble, which was built on a mountain of debt, or the dot-com bubble, which was fueled by regular folks like you and me throwing money at IPOs, this AI boom is being paid for with cold, hard, pre-existing corporate cash. It's built on a foundation of solid rock, not sand. Okay, fair enough. But what about that whole CEOs passing money around thing? Is this all just a big, complicated house of cards? Or could it actually be a safety net? So if you're a critic, you're looking at a chart that looks, well, a little suspicious. You see NVIDIA investing in OpenAI, which then turns around and becomes a customer of Oracle. At the same time, you have Microsoft investing in that same company, OpenAI, which also happens to be a huge customer of NVIDIA. It feels like the money is just going in a big circle. And the loudest criticism is pretty simple. These companies are just propping each other up. They're investing in their own customers just to make their revenue numbers look good for the next quarter. It seems like a classic shell game. But what if we're looking at this all wrong? What if this isn't about juicing next quarter's earnings at all? What if it's actually a really, really smart strategy to manage risk? Think of it like this. The goal isn't just about winning this one hand of poker. It's about winning the whole tournament. By investing all over the place, up and down the supply chain, these tech giants are basically buying a piece of every major player at the table. They're making sure that no matter who ends up with a winning hand in the end, they own a piece of it. And that brings us back to another huge difference between now and the dot-com era. Back then, those companies were desperate for a constant flow of cash from the public market, just stay afloat. The AI giants today, they're mostly playing with their own money. They're spending from their own deep pockets. And all of this mountain of cash, this web of investments,
It all leads to a final, really powerful way to think about this whole thing. Maybe it's not a bubble, it's a bet.
And this quote just nails it. They are betting $500 billion on a dice roll. If it comes up to 6, they will make 10 trillion. Now think about that. It is an absolutely insane high-stakes bet. But a risky bet isn't necessarily a bad bet. So let's be clear. For these companies, the biggest risk here isn't going out of business. They have so much cash, so many other profitable divisions, they can afford to lose this bet. No, the real risk is having to stand in front of their shareholders and explain why they torched hundreds of billions of dollars on data centers instead of just paying out dividends if this whole thing goes sideways. So that's where we're left. Is this all just a classic speculative bubble pumped up by hype and wishful thinking? Or are we watching something completely new, the single biggest, most calculated bet in the history of business? The dice, as they say, are still in the air.